My 4 years as the U.S. Fire Administrator were extremely difficult because I operated very much as a change agent. And being a change agent is not easy. You know change has to take place. It can't be like this. This is not serving the fire service as it's supposed to. The boots on the ground, I mean, the people that do this job every day, that's who matters to me. But in a way, it wasn't about my resilience. It was watching the firefighters in that fight, thousands of them, who did everything they could to stop that disaster, and they couldn't. If you believe it deeply enough that you are willing to fight every day, even though you keep getting knocked down and get no's, not taking the no is key.
Welcome to Responder Resilience, along with my co-host, Bonnie Rumley, LCSW EMT. I'm David Dashinger. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Lori Moore-Merrell, the former U.S. Fire Administrator and a trailblazer in public safety and emergency response innovation. We're diving into her remarkable journey as a firefighter and paramedic when few women were in the field, and we're going to explore some of the significant changes she championed at the IAFF and other agencies. She'll share some insights about leading diverse teams, and we'll discuss how to build a mental resilience for first responders. So don't miss this insightful conversation.
Thanks to our resource partner, EMS and Fire Pro Expo, the largest gathering of EMS and fire professionals in New England, September 24th through 27, 2025, at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. Sign up at emspro.org.
There's a new app built by firefighters for firefighters, and it's called Crackle. Download the app now for free as a legacy member and get early access to exclusive content, tools, and updates as they drop. Get the free app at crackle.respondertv.com.
This episode is made possible by the First Responder Center for Excellence. Discover more at firstrespondercenter.org and connect with us on X, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube.
Remember to like and subscribe: YouTube, Responder Resilience; Facebook, Responder TV; LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And please go to our website, respondertv.com, for past episodes and guest information. We'll be right back to speak with Dr. Lori after this.
In this family, more of us die by our own hands than by the hazards of the job.
In this family, up to a quarter of 911 telecommunicators have symptoms of post-traumatic stress.
In this family, our mental health and wellness are in crisis,
while responders are quietly suffering.
In this family, many struggle with job-related stress,
burnout, moral injury,
sleep disruptions, substance abuse,
and relationship problems.
In this family, we can help the helpers
with vital information and resources,
resilient strategies,
and success stories of overcoming the obstacles.
In this family, no one is alone.
Welcome to Responder Resilience with co-hosts retired Lieutenant David Dashinger, Dr. Stacy Raymond, and Bonnie Rumley, LCSW EMTB.
We'd like to welcome Dr. Lori Moore-Merrell. She's a distinguished leader in public safety, policy development, and emergency response innovation. With a career spanning federal government administration and international non-governmental organizations, she's built a reputation as a transformative change agent in fire service leadership. Her expertise includes strategic planning, big data analysis, community risk assessment, and translating research into actionable policies that enhance public safety operations. Dr. Moore-Merrell believes that together we can turn a moment of crisis into an era of opportunity for the fire service and beyond. Dr. Lori, warm welcome to Responder Resilience.
Thank you so much, David, and thank you for having me for part of this conversation.
It's an honor, and I just want to say all the things that you've done are very, very inspiring to us, and so it'll be a pleasurable conversation to have you here to ask about all these things. So thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. It's great to be with you guys, and I'm excited about the conversation ahead.
And a fellow first responder. So we would love to start with your journey in fire and EMS, actually. If you could talk a little bit about how you started, and it's no secret that you were a female entering a male-dominated career. So really, really curious to get your thoughts on that and what that was like for you at the way beginning.
Wow, that's a great question. And Bonnie, coming from another woman, thank you for asking, because it was at a time when, there were very few of us on the job. And I'm grateful to say that there are so many more today. And Women in Fire is one of my greatest, I love that organization. And I just think so highly of them and how they come together and hold each other up. But I came on the job in I don't want to say, 87, at a time when I was the sixth woman who was entering the Memphis Fire Department at the time. And those that had gone before me, I had struggled significantly. And my rule was no less. You come on and you have those who are okay with you being there. They want to help you. They want to hold you up and teach you more of I'll say a father figure kind of thing, not to be, disrespectful of their leadership, but it was more of that kind of relationship. And then there are those that are just the nasty, big brothers who didn't want you there. And did everything they could to sort of thwart your success and put you in situations that they would deem unwinnable and untenable. So I experienced both of those. And I'm really, I'm grateful for both, because you grow through having people help you and you grow through having to struggle. And so it wasn't pleasant. But at the end of the day, I was able to learn from that, and I was able to focus on just doing the job. And so that was what my outcome was. I didn't fight. I didn't file charges. I didn't, wear being a woman on my sleeve at the time. It was more, I'm just here to do a good job. I want to be the best at the time paramedic. I did not enter the firefighting side. In fact, I was part of a lawsuit later on with the Fair Labor Standards Act and all of that for deploying EMS and not using us to cross-train no role. And so that's a whole other story. But being deployed on the EMS side, inside a fire department carried its own stigma. And Bonnie, you're probably well aware of that. But being a woman in that space where you're often out, not just with the first response crew, but with your partner who might not be happy about being deployed with a woman either. And so I had really good partners along the way who, to their credit, saw my ability, not who I was. You know what I mean? And not being a woman, they saw that I was a good, very good paramedic. And so that's what mattered to me, is doing the job, gaining the education, gaining a reputation of being good. If, and having somebody, one of your colleagues say, well, if something happens to me, if I go down, I want her working on me. That's like the highest act, right? And then, of course, moving over to the IAFF, I was on the job for 7 years in the fire department, and then recruited to the International Association of Firefighters, where a whole other male oriented kind of organization at the time, and had additional struggles there. But again, you grow from those struggles. You learn to do the job while you're here. And though it's hard, you keep your head down, you perform, and people will see what you're bringing to the table. And so that's really, I guess, in summary, what I experienced and have experienced my entire career.
Mm-hmm. Well, and dare I say, going through those challenges is what gives you resilience and fortitude to be able to get to the next level, because not a lot of people are able to also get to the level that you were at with IAFF and the government. So it seems to me like those times just further fueled you and propelled you further.
Bonnie, I love that because it's spot on. I look back and my years, 4 years as the U.S. Fire Administrator were extremely difficult because I operated very much as a change agent. And being a change agent is not easy. So you can't make everybody happy, but change has to take place. It can't be like this. This is not serving the fire service as it's supposed to. And so that's not an easy task. But what prepared me for that and for those fights and just digging in and being, humbling yourself just to go ask for help, and even at the highest level, right? What prepared me for that were the struggles that I'd had at the IAFF. Honestly, had I not gone through a lot of the struggles that I had there and just being able to fight through and gain traction on your message gain traction on the good you're trying to do, on the changes you're trying to bring to the fire service and to the boots on the ground. I mean, the people that do this job every day, that's who matters to me. And making sure that they have what they need, that they have good working environment, that they have appropriate benefits, and that they're taken care of is so important. And so had I not struggled there, I don't think I would have been quite as successful as the fire administrator without building that resilience. And so, Bonnie, spot on with what you said.
Attention all first responders. Join us for the largest gathering of EMS and fire professionals in New England. Get ready for the EMS and Fire Pro Expo happening September 24th to 27th, 2025 at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. Connect with over 2,500 fellow first responders. Learn from 90-plus world-class speakers and explore 300-plus continuing education opportunities designed just for you. Dive into hands-on workshops that challenge your skills and elevate your career while enjoying fine dining and entertainment. This is your chance to gain insights that could change lives, yours included. Don't miss out. Register now at emspro.org and be part of this transformational experience. See you there.
It's such an amazing progression. I'm fascinated by the IAFF piece because, as we all know, firefighters are a little resistant to change sometimes. And
no, never, David.
How'd you operate in that kind of mindset or environment? What ways did you find were the most successful to kind of get that change accomplished that you were looking to move forward?
Wow. That's a big question, because you're right. The saying is, the only thing we hate worse than change is the way things are, right? We all know that. And so change is always a challenge. The tradition of the IAFF is not greatly different than the tradition of the fire service, right? We live based on what we believe and the camaraderie and the brotherhood, it was always called. So the same operation within the IAFF. One of the reasons that I think I was able to bring change, that I was able to bring forward research, I was able to float new projects that made a change, whether it was getting in the field for doing crew size studies, or whether it was EMS advancement, whether it was health and safety advancement, GIS operations, all of these things that we were able to evolve inside the IAFF is out of sheer persistence, drive, determination, on and on, is something you believe in. If you believe it deeply enough that you are willing to fight every day, even though you keep getting knocked down and get no's, not taking the no is key. And don't have it be personal. Can it be personal? Yes. But if you get to choose whether or not it's personal, their intent and your perception are two different things. And so getting a no for someone, you get to choose whether it was personal or whether it's just a setback. Let me keep going. And I think that's what helped me through the time, is that I didn't take no personal. I'm like, okay, they don't understand what I'm trying to do here. And so I would reason in my own head that it was their lack of understanding. Okay, let me rephrase and let me try again. Let me see if we can branch out, maybe gain a little, bounce it off a few folks around you, whatever the idea might have been, and gain some traction here. See if I can get others to understand. So you bolster your message, and then you go back in. And over time, I began to see that if I could get, as a woman, and Bonnie, this comes back to the whole woman thing, if I could get a male to agree with what I wanted to do, we would get it through. Now, is that right? No. And is it reality? Yes, it is. And so learning that sometimes you have to play within the arena that you're given. You just have to play in that arena. Don't fight always what it is, because sometimes if you're on a mission, let's work the mission in spite of what's going on around you and in spite of the attitudes. If I need a male on board, okay, I'll go get a male on board to endorse what I'm doing, and then all of a sudden we get it through. What do I care that that's how it happened? Did I get the mission accomplished? Yes. That's what I celebrate. And so these are the kinds of things that I learned along the way.
I think it's really great advice for any leader listening. on what you just said. And I think it takes an incredibly large amount of confidence to be able to not take those things personally. And we all know that it's not easy to do that in any profession, but the fact that you were able to put a good boundary for yourself, it's really self-preservation and boundaries. And that's wonderful to hear. And that's also so inspiring for our listeners, because I think a lot of people struggle with that part. And that's the wall they bump up against. And then there's the different wall of the constraints of their agency or higher up above them. This would be a great segue into the next thing that I wanted to ask you about, which is it's really difficult to watch our brothers and sisters of first responder world in all of the trauma and struggles that they must see in natural and man-made disasters. How have you coped with those things over the years? Because part of being in administrative roles is being entrenched in some of those situations.
Yeah. So great question. That is, that's sort of where our rubber meets the road, isn't it? And the reality of what the job is. And we don't escape that reality. Every day we see things as first responders that we can't unsee. And you go home and you process it, and we may, what if I had done this? What if I'd done something different? Would it have made a different outcome? It's difficult for us to get away from thinking we could have done more, because that's who we are. We always want to do more. And it's hard to let go of that and understand that the circumstances were indeed beyond anything that we could have done. And I'll take you to two examples that are probably more recent, for me. And I'll start with the Lahaina fire. The Lahaina fire that happened in August of 2023 was one of the most devastating things I've ever seen in my entire career. I haven't had a lot of, just to confess here a bit, I haven't had a lot of struggle with, I'm able to process things. And, God makes us all the way he makes us. And I'm able to process things that I've seen through my career, I think in a healthy way, and understand that I'm never going to forget them, but I know how to process them in the context. But when I got to Lahaina, it was so incredibly overwhelming that my own processing, my mind failed. I was not able to process what I was seeing in the moment. And it's the first time that when I got back from having seen that, and we were boots on the ground 24 hours after the ignition. I mean, this was a short-lived fire, but incredibly devastating. Things were still smoldering. I mean, we're walking through literally the path. They're still gathering, unfortunately, the bodies of the fatalities. And just processing all of this in the moment. And when I got back to my my hotel room for the evening, and I called my husband, that's when I understood I was in a safe enough environment that I could let go. And I lost it. I was crying. And I'm like, why is this happening to me? I'm 35 years into a career, and this is the first time I've had that happen. And so this can hit you at any point, I think. It can be early on. It can be 35 years when you finally experience something that's so completely overwhelming your own capacity to process it in a healthy way. And so that happened to me in Lahaina. And so I spent a good bit of time, talking to some folks and availing myself of those resources that you all talk about, whether it is faith, family, friends, those things that really hold us in a resilient manner. The other one for me was the LA fires that we just experienced. And it wasn't for me in this one. That one, having gone through Lahaina, I think I built more resilience. And having seen that, and you do over time, you build resilience for next, and you gain that. But in LA, it wasn't about my resilience. It was watching the firefighters in that fight, thousands of them, who did everything they could to stop that disaster, and they couldn't. The circumstances were so overwhelming. The winds, the fuel load, the ignition. I mean, it was unbelievable, and it was an unwinnable fight. And to talk with the firefighters afterwards who don't want to be in that situation, they're here to fight, they're here to win, they're here to make a difference, right? Give more. And they were in a circumstance that was completely unwinnable, no matter what they brought. And so for me, it was my heart extended to them because I'm thinking, what are they going to deal with going forward? This is their community that's devastated. And what are they going to deal with going, well, what could I have done more? There was nothing. They could not. And so for me, for that one, it's a bit more of my empathy, I suppose, for those who were in that fight, in that moment of an unwinnable fight. And I think that's the other side. So those are the two for me that are most front of mind.
Wow, those are such profound examples, and thank you for sharing those. We would love to circle back on some of the things you just mentioned. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back to pick up on our conversation.
Stand by for an important announcement about our book launch coming September 2025.
All units, stand by for a confirmed structure fire with report of persons trapped.
In a world where first responders save lives, this book could help save theirs by preparing you to answer when they call for help. Based on over 200 conversations and the trusted team behind the Responder Resilience podcast, Helping the Helpers gives you the tools to understand their world, speak their language, and earn their trust. This work is challenging, but deeply needed and profoundly rewarding. Their stories don't start with trauma, but too often they end there. Infused with real-life experiences, this guide reveals the human behind the badge and equips you to build a first responder-centered practice that works. From understanding their culture to the practical realities of working with first responders and chapters across the spectrum of first responder professions, you'll gain insight into the hidden struggles that shape their reality and the steps you can take to help them heal. When trust is shattered, the stakes are high. This book helps you build it before it's too late. Are you ready to make a difference? Be the resource they can count on. Get early access, including a free sample chapter and book launch invite. Go to helpingthehelpers.me to get your early access when you sign up. Helping the Helpers book launches in September 2025.
That's just a trailer for our book that we're launching in September. So we're excited to bring that out to the world, especially for clinicians. There's not enough to go around for first responders. We really want to support that. So super excited.
I love that.
So, Dr. Lori, you touched on this, and I know you've spoken and written about it. That's the power of faith and relationships in your life. How have these elements played a role in your career, your life, especially in these high-stress environments you were describing?
Wow. We could talk forever about those, I suppose. So, yes, I am a huge believer in what I call the 3 Fs. I know at the IAFF, we talked about those a lot, and they, family, and friends for me. It's huge. And I'll start with my faith because I've grown up in a Southern Baptist church, to be honest, and Christian from, an early age. And so faith has been a big part of my life throughout my life. And depending on prayer and going to, the scripture to understand life and the things and the difficulties we're going to experience and how to just depend on God for me and the strength that comes from him. And so that's huge for me. And it's a big part of my everyday life. I try to make sure that I have some quiet time to reflect and to meditate every day before we start. And there are, certain parts of the day and the struggles that I've been through my career where I would stop in the moment and just go, God, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Why is this happening? Help me understand, help me to see past. And so prayer for me is a big one. And I believe that, that's where a lot of my enlightenment comes from, and just the messages and just this intuitive thought that comes for me and a passion for other people. Because usually what happens is that it's turned away from me and I start to reflect on others. And I think that's a big piece of it, is that in that moment, when we're feeling devastated and it's about us who are hurting, somehow if we turn and look that we're not alone in that space, we're not alone hurting, there are others, and think about what we can do to expand in them, it changes us. It changes the the hurt that we feel or the pain that we may feel, if we can just turn the lens a little bit to see other people. So I think that comes from the faith. And of course, my family has always been great support of what I do. And I have a husband who's tremendously supportive, who's from the same field. I've been in the fire service for over 31 years and just grown up and experienced his own, traumas along the way, seeing things you can't unsee, all of those things. But just being a strong leader and knowing I have somebody that is a confidant who I can say literally anything to, and he'll still love me no matter what. And I think that's important. And our kids are the same. So, I had a strong mother growing up. I don't want to fail to mention I lost my mom about 10 years ago, but growing up, she was that for me. And so and I think, Bonnie, coming back to your question about just being a woman in this space, I think my mom prepared me for that. I've had some great male mentors. In fact, all my mentors have been male, except for my mother, who really prepared me to be a strong leader and understand the mission that's ahead of you and just do a good job at every turn. And if you just do the job and perform, then the outcome will find itself. And so I think those are the kinds of things, Dave, that I would share in those spaces.
Thank you so much.
Well, I love hearing that your mom was so monumental in your life. And as we know, a lot of first responders didn't get to experience that with either parent or maybe one parent. So hearing that you had that living, breathing example is just incredible. And I'm sure you paved the way for your children to do all the things that they wanted to seek out in their lives by doing that too. Yeah, being supportive and carrying on and to the next generation. I think that's why we have so many in our space, right? Whether it's fire, law enforcement, or in EMS, that are legacy. I always ask when I go to speak to a recruit class or do a station visit, if you've got young recruits in there, are you a legacy? How many of you are legacies, right? Because you'll always find that. And I think, Bonnie, what you just said is part of that. We see grow up like parents do this job, and this is what they know. This is what they've been groomed to understand. There's a mission of service, and it's pretty admirable.
Hey firefighters, let's take a moment to talk about something important. There's a new app built by firefighters for firefighters, and it's not just another wellness tracker or generic resource hub. It's called Crackle. You've probably seen the magazine, but this is the next evolution. The app is about one thing: helping firefighters not fail. Not just on the job, but in life. In your health, your relationships, your mindset, and your longevity. That's why Crackle is designed to meet firefighters exactly where they are, with resources that make sense, are easy to use, and actually respect your time. You can download the app now for free as a Legacy member. That means you get early access to exclusive content, tools, and updates as they drop. Use the QR code on the screen to download the Crackle app, or you can download it from the App Store or Google Play and stay in the fight. Not just at work, but at home and in your own head too. Because your best days shouldn't be behind you, they should be ahead of you.
Because you have so many wonderful personal and professional experiences, I wonder if you had some advice for listeners and viewers on different strategies that people could use in leading people from different backgrounds. Because thankfully, the fire service and the other first responder branches have become much more diverse over the decades. So do you have any specific suggestions in that regard?
Wow, that's a whole segment on itself, Bonnie. So I can tell you that leading people who are not like you is tough. Because as leaders, we all come in with a concept that, everybody should think like me. And this is where we're going to do this. And here's what I think we need to do. And here's how I'm going to lead us forward. And we get the focus a little bit on the I with an assumption that everybody's going to just agree and come along. And that's not at all the case. And so particularly today, because the diversity has been so great. And I want to say diversity just for a second is we're not always just talking about the diversity of race and ethnicity and gender, right? We're talking about diversity of thought, diversity of generations. And that's one of our greatest right now. It's nothing about race and ethnicity. It's all about generations and the way that the generations are thinking differently. So we have to be aware that diversity in and of itself is a strength and understanding. I think that, meeting people who are not like us, what I would say is, first of all, realize that there are people in the room that are not like you. Look at the differences in the generation, the gender, the race, and all of those things, and just assume that they're going to think differently. I think that's the first thing we need to do. Assume that everybody in here does not think like me. And that means setting aside your own ego and taking on a sense of humility. And I try to live by three things: humility, hunger, and be the hardest working person in the room. And I think that's the same thing that The Rock, I think that's what he proposes is, always be humble, be hungry, and be the hardest working person in the room. And so that's one advice. But the other is try to move yourself from judgment, which is our first thing we do. First impression, what are we doing? When we meet someone, what are you doing? You're assessing their physical attributes, the first words out of their mouth, their handshake, anything else that you can see around that or hear. So, okay, fine, first impression. But how do we move from first impression for not having that be our overall judgment of an individual, right? So moving from judgment to perhaps listening to understand, not to judge. So can we move to understanding? I may not agree with what you're saying, but I'll try to understand it, right? And that's different. Understanding does not mean agreement. And so releasing yourself enough to say, okay, I can listen, and there's no threat that because I'm listening that I'm somehow perceived to be agreed. No, listen to understand. And then I think moving on to, appreciate and respect others who are not like us. So it's almost like a ladder that I've talked about many times in teaching leadership. If you can move on from the judgment rung on that ladder to an understanding, perhaps to respect, and then to appreciate, that I can move between, okay, I respect you. I really appreciate you and what you bring to the table. So that for me, Bonnie, is as a leader, maturity takes us up those rungs and helps us to understand how to lead people who are not like us. And understanding it makes us better. I love working with different generations because not only do they hold me accountable to go learn and continuous learning along the way, but they hold you accountable to be inclusive of them and their ideas. And it really does make you a better person.
Well, there's such a great philosophy and reframing of what we could, look at as things are not getting better, with the new generations coming in. But if we reframe it, like, what are they bringing to the table? What contributions can they make that are unique and exceptional? And kind of with that in mind, I'd love to segue into talking about, I'll call it a meditation that you shared when I saw you speak in Nashville at the First Responder Center for Excellence Suicide and Mental Health Symposium. And I was thinking of it as the open seat at the table. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but can you talk about it and perhaps even share it with our listeners?
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Yes. So at the conference, I was able to share, just as we closed up the conference, just to get everybody thinking of, it's not always about your resilience, but how can you be a part of someone else's resilience and really begin to think beyond ourselves? Because as we already said, if we turn and look, there are others, right, who need me to help them. And I think it changes our own resilience in the moment. So this was a story. It was actually an adaptation from a story that I read by Gary Burnison. And if you haven't heard of Gary Burnison, he's a great leadership coach, career coach. So he will write a lot of meditations here and there. And so this was one that I adapted for the moment with the firefighters and fire service at that conference. And so it really does ask that everybody just close their eyes for a moment.
Unless you're driving.
And vision. Yes, unless you're driving. Yes, please. And sitting beside someone you don't trust, which is what we are always doing, right? And so really just close your eyes for a moment and envision this long table. And at the table are seated people in your life who have had a role. Maybe it's a mentor. Maybe it's your parents. Maybe it's a teacher from school, a coach. Who at your table, who has a seat at your table who's made a difference in your life? And if you see these people and you begin to even think and name them, and they're just filling up your table. And at the end, of your table, there's a couple of empty seats, perhaps. And those seats begin to have you think about who's next. Who am I going to encounter that makes a difference in my life? But what I really want you to do in the moment is to think about whose table can you go fill one of those empty seats? At whose table, in whose life do you become one of those people who sit at their table to help them along their path, to become the difference maker for them, to perhaps provide something to them that they can never repay, opening a door, giving an advice, just being there to listen, but you fill an empty seat at someone else's table. And that's where I think we all find our place, to be grateful for those in our lives who are at our table, but look forward to who we can help along our way by sitting and taking an empty seat at their table when they need us the most.
That's great, Dr. Lori. What's so interesting is I just did that exercise as you were describing it, and there's almost this internal, how many seats do I want to leave empty? And I wonder how many of our responders would feel that,
That's, how many seats? And that goes for your table or someone else's, right? We want to care and have enough empathy that we want to be that, fill those seats for someone else. But how many seats do I have open and available?
Right.
Because I need you.
Right. Right.
It's just a beautiful way to kind of tie together the lineage as you were describing, embracing the new generations coming in, mentoring them, helping to shape them so they can shape the fire service moving forward. So much we'd love to talk about. And this one thing that I wanted to touch on is some of the work you did on a national level with ENFERS and upgrading that to the newer system that's, I think, is in place now. Can you talk a little bit about what your goals were, how you accomplished it, and how it's benefiting the fire service?
Wow, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So NERIS, the National Emergency Response Information System, is our new national data set. It's actually an analytics platform, so it goes far beyond a data set as the old INFERS or the National Fire Incident Reporting System was. And so for 50 years, this legacy has been around. And so we like to think of it, as an old friend, but its time has come to move on. And so it filled its role in the time frame, but no longer is it adequate to really provide us the information we need on the front line. And I think that the new NERIS system has been built by the UL Fire Safety Research Institute through a public-private partnership from the U.S. Fire Administration, who still is mandated through legislation in the 1974 Fire Prevention and Control Act to have a national data system. And so NERIS has become the new national data system. We're onboarding departments right now. And this new platform will minimize the data entry from all responders. Now, every responder should cheer right now, right? Because I tell firefighters all the time, medics are pretty good at data because you have to be as the medical as the law, right? All the legal implication. For fire service data, firefighters have just been, you're the rookie, go fill in these boxes on this form and be careful, don't click that box because it'll open up another window. And it's just a nightmare for data, and they're not very good at it. And so they know that I tell them that often. What we've done with the NERIS system is minimize that human data entry by leveraging data from multiple sources, fusing that data to really be able to mine it for intelligence. And so we'll have some AI algorithms that'll be able to produce some real intelligence, operational decision-making, and much, much more along the way. And so it's in a geospatial platform. It is going to be state-of-the-art, and it's dynamic. What that means is that not only are we going to be able to look for the first time at lithium-ion battery fires, for example, but if we have, I often say flying saucer fires that happen next year, we're going to be able to track that too. Yep. And so it's dynamic enough that it won't be stale like our legacy system, which is going to be closed down by December this year, latest early of 2026, because we are onboarding. And as soon as departments onboard, they can stop putting data in the old system, be on the new system, and carry on. And as we put the other one to rest very soon.
Well, as someone who struggled as an officer filling out a report of a chimney fire, and there was just no logical way to document it, I applaud you.
Case in point.
It's also incredible to think of the use of AI and some of these implications that could really drive where you decide to put efforts and funding into the fire service to make it better and safer for all firefighters. It's incredible.
Oh, absolutely. Bonnie, spot on, because we're going to see things we've not been able to see before. AI finds us, even if we're just looking at some narrow machine learning, even large language models, we're going to find things and patterns that humans would not have seen. And so understanding, God forbid another pandemic, but we would see it first because the patterns are going to be picked up in this new data system. Think about EMS calls and all of those going, okay, we're all responding. There are millions of, difficulty breathing calls that are happening right now. What's going on, right? And so seeing these patterns before, we're weeks in and now everybody's exposed. And so I just feel like this is going to give us some really great power for analytics and intelligence.
It's great. I was wondering if there are any other accomplishments or goals that you really, really set out to see happen that you would love to share with us today.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. So one I have to tell you about is, of course, the World Fire Congress. And so I don't know if you all heard much about the World Fire Congress because it was handled much like a government-to-government Congress, not a conference, though I invited a lot of colleagues from the U.S. to be there, witness it as an observer. At the table, it was set up much like a UN deliberation where every nation that attended, their top fire officials from all the nations were invited, and we had 56 nations to send delegates. And so we had this UN-style meeting with the top fire officials, and we talked about how fire is an enemy for all of us. It is a great concern, whether it's wildfire, structure fire, firefighter health and safety, emerging technology. All of these things are challenges that we have in all of our nations. And then we said, all right, are we the ones as the National Fire Service leaders, are we the ones to take this on, these challenges, collaborate and figure out how do we overcome these challenges? Mm-hmm. And everybody said, yes, we are the ones, right? And so we actually, over 2 days, had these deliberations. We had our top researchers around the world come in and talk about each of these challenges. What's the latest science? Where do we need to engage? And then we establish communities of practice that are ongoing around each of these major challenges. And they meet every month. And you'll have, 35 nations show up on a call to talk about lithium ion. You'll have 20 nations show up on a call to talk about firefighter health and safety, cancer, mental health. And so it's ongoing, it's living. And it is moving toward the second World Fire Congress in 2026 in London. And so the UK agreed to host the 2026 Congress. And then the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, is going to host in 2028. And so we're looking for a national host in 2030. And so this Congress being having the inaugural one, an idea that I thought was crazy. I went to some of the national leaders. I said, guys, do you think we can do this? Will you support it if I try to move this forward? And they did. And so the U.S. Was successful in not only having the Congress, but having these nations sign a principle statement that basically says what I said at the beginning. Fire is an issue or challenge for us in many fronts, and we are the ones to lead forward. And so it's an exciting opportunity, I think, for our global fire service to really come together, share knowledge, share information, share technology, all of these things that can make us all, lift us all up and be better, because the fire service is the fire service. No matter what nation you're talking about, we say that often as a firefighter, they're all kind of similar, and that's true. It's true globally. Firefighters are similar around the world, and having them all come together was very exciting. So, Bonnie, I would have to say that's the one I would tell you about.
Well, I have to give you kudos. That's an incredible thing to listen to, but to be at that table, what must have been really special and a culmination of all your career. So great to share that with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And if you want to see more, if their listeners want to see more, go just Google World Fire Congress USA, and you should be able to find the website. You can read the proceedings report. You can see the nations who were at the table and experience just some of the emotion just through the pictures that we experienced with all of these nations coming together. So I invite you to visit that.
I really salute you for the evolution of your body of work and building on it and taking it to a global level like that. It's got to be super exciting. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bonnie, any final thoughts?
Dr. Lori, I think your story, I would love to hear a lot more, to be honest with you, but your story is so inspiring, and your attitude and your go-get-it motivation, I can feel it coming through the screen. And it's phenomenal. And so I know you're going to do even more in your career. And I hope that this inspires some of our listeners and viewers to go get it for themselves too.
Oh, Bonnie, thank you so much. And I'm so grateful for what you all are doing for your mission. And it is exciting. And I love seeing people rise up and really drawing others in, because you want to make a difference for them. And I think that's where we all should live. That's our service attitude. We want to do it in our communities, but we have to remember to lift up each other as well. And so thank you for what you're doing and for having me be a small part of it today. Thank you. Thank you.
We appreciate you and all the positive change you're bringing to the profession and to the world, and for spending your time having this conversation with us. So thank you. It's an honor.
It's been my great honor as well. Thank you.
Remember to like and subscribe. YouTube, Responder Resilience. Facebook, Responder TV. We're on LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And go to our website, respondertv.com, for past episodes and guest information. Till the next time, stay safe. Be kind to yourself. Take care.